Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we'll resume our discussion from chapter 8, verse 22. Purushasa paraha partha bhaktya labhayastvananyaya yasyantahastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attained by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. So, this verse explains the consciousness that Krishna had noted in verse 17 of his devotees, when he had said, Ananya chetaha satat, that his devotees are constantly thinking. And what is the destination of them? That Krishna spoke in 8:15, the very next verse, Samsiddhim paramam gatam. Right, so they will attain the paramam gatam, the highest destination. And what is the method for attaining that? That is Ananya Bhakti. Right, so Krishna is making this point that he and the supreme destination, which is the spiritual world, are attained by Bhakti. Now, the spiritual world can be even attained by Mishra Bhakti. Right? We made this point earlier on, that whether it is Karma Gyan or Astang Mishra Bhakti, the person can attain spiritual world. But only one who is performing pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti, can attain Krishna. Okay, so it's like somebody buying a ticket and going to Washington DC, and somebody buying a ticket and going to Washington DC and meeting the president of the US. Right? So one may need some qualifications to enter the capital city, and that is Mishra Bhakti. But in order to get the personal association of Krishna, pure devotional service. Now, one might say that is spiritual world the only place where Krishna is found? And Krishna, he negates that. But he says, Yasyanta sthani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. He says, no, I am present everywhere. So the only difference between the material and the spiritual world is the consciousness of the person. If the consciousness of the person is material, then the world around him is material. And if it is spiritual, if the person is Krishna conscious, the world becomes spiritual around him. So Srila Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that the Vedas compare the Lord to a tree standing still, yet bearing many varieties of fruits, flowers and changing leaves. Right? So Krishna is the root, the tree, and the fruits, flowers and the changing leaves are all the expansions and the partial expansion and the plenary expansion that come from Krishna. So Prabhupada says they are known by a variety of names like Purushottam, Trivikrama, Keshav, Madhav, Anirudh, Rishikesh, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Sridhar, Vasudev, Damodar, Janardhan, Narayan, Vaman, Padmanabha, etc. So Prabhupada makes this point to also establish some distinction between Krishna and his expansions. That even though they are coming from Krishna, but the difference is that Krishna is there in the spiritual world and the expansions are spread over. So all the Narayan expansions are spread into the spiritual world. In Vaikuntha, the Vishnu expansions descend into the material world. But Krishna is there. And in a way, they are the same but not. In Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma says, Deeparuchireva hida santaram upetya Deepayeta vivrata hetu samana dharma yastatra gevicha vishnutaya vibhati govindamadi purusham tamam badami. So gives the example of Deeparuchireva hida santaram upetya. Like one candle can light multiple candles. And then they are all the same. But there is still the difference between the one candle that lights the other candles. So all these expansions, Purushottam, Trivakarma, Vasudev, Rishikesh, they are Vishnu Tattva. They are the same as Krishna. But the difference is that Krishna is their cause. So Prabhupada also quotes another verse from Brahma Samhita, Goloka eva nivasate khilatma bhuto, that Krishna is always residing in Golok there. And then he quotes from Shvetashvar Upanishad that Parasya Shaktir Vididva Shruyate Swabhavika Jnana Bala Kriya Cha, that his energies are so expansive that they systematically conduct everything in the cosmic manifestation without a flaw, although the Supreme Lord is far, far away. Yeah, so Krishna is far and near. So he is far, far away. Everything is being done through his expansions. Everything is done through his energy. He's having fun in Golok, and is near because as soon as one develops this consciousness of Ananya Bhaktiya, then Krishna is immediately attained at that time. The person does not have to travel anywhere. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Verse 23. Yatra kale tvanavrittam avritam chaiva yoginaha prayatayanti tam kyalam vakshami bharatarshabha. O best of the Bharats, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. So, in the previous set of verses, Krishna has talked about two possible destinations. He has talked about those who die and take birth in the material world, and those who die and get liberated and do not come to the material world. So Arjuna is now curious that what is the difference in the paths that the soul takes in different situations. So it's not an explicit question that Arjuna asks, but it's an implicit question. That these are two very different destinations. So they have to be different paths. Can you explain to me what are the different paths? So in 6 verses, from 23 to 26, Krishna will talk about the path that is followed by the mixed devotees. And in the last 2 verses of the chapter, he will talk about the pure devotees in 27 and 28. Now, Srila Prabhupada makes an interesting point in the purport, and it's a little bit of a prelude into what Krishna is going to say. So we'll see that Krishna will basically talk about how different demigods and aspects of time they conjugate in one or the other paths, whether it is Uttarayan or whether it is Dakshayan, whether it is day or night, whether it is waxing moon, etc. And Prabhupada makes this point that the unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord, they do not really care when they leave their body or by what method. They leave everything in Krishna's hand and so easily and happily return to Godhead. Right? So the point is that all this alignment of factors is only relevant for those who are practicing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga or Astanga Yoga. Especially Astanga Yogis, because one of the siddhis that they acquire is the ability to leave the body at their will. So they wait for the right conjunction of the various factors, and then they leave their body and attain perfection. For karmis and jnanis, they rely on the strength of their piety or realization to leave at the right moment. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. Verse 24. Agnir jyotiraha shuklaha shanmasa uttarayanam tat prayata gacchante brahma brahmvido janaha. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world under the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. So this is a fairly interesting verse, in the sense that it can also lead people to have misconceptions. Right? So essentially, what is being said over here, that if a person dies at a particular time, like during the Shukla Paksha, when the moon is waxing, or during Uttarayan, when the sun is traveling in the north, and under the influence of the fiery god and light. So these are not related to so much to time. But one might say that people die all the time, and even the most sinful person may coincidentally die at a conjunction of these times. Shukla Paksha, Uttarayan, during the daytime. And even though he may be sinful and deserves to go to hellish planets, just because of dying at this time, he goes back to the spiritual world. Remember, this is Krishna talking about the path that the soul takes to travel to the spiritual world. So the understandings that the acharyas give us is that this does not necessarily refer to the physical conjunction of time. It actually refers to the devas who assist in the passage of the soul. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that actually Krishna is speaking in an abbreviated way over here. So he quotes from the Chandogya Upanishad when he said that there are actually 12 devtas. The demigods for the light, the day, the waxing fortnight, the 6 months of the Uttarayan, the demigod of the year, air, sun, moon, lightning, water, Indra and Brahma. On the order of Krishna, they come and they carry the soul out of the material world. Right? So it's not so much the physical aspect of time per se, but more so the path that they take. And at other places in the Vedas, more details is given here, that how each of these presiding demigods, they take the soul and they hand it over to the next. So the first to take the soul is the deity of light. From the deity of light, it goes to the deity of day, then to the deity of the waxing fortnight, then to the deity of the Uttarayan, from there to the deity of the year, deity of the sun, deity of the moon, the deity of the lightning, then goes to Brahma. Right? So the understanding is that these are the presiding deities who are helping in carrying the soul out of this material universe into the spiritual world. Right? And when Krishna speaks about those who to circle back in the material world, then there are again a different set of deities that take the soul and lead it back into the material world. Next verse. Verse 25. Dhumo ratristatha Krishna Shanmasa Dakshinayanam Tatra Chandramasam Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. So this is the destination of those who are materially situated. And once again, the references to the smoke, the night and the fortnight is to the presiding deities. So it's not that one who dies during daytime goes to the spiritual world and one who dies at night goes to the moon planet. It's not like that. It's just that there are different deities who participate in helping the soul travel. Now, even these souls are pious souls, right? Because the destination is the heavenly kingdom. They're going to the moon planet. Now, souls that are impious, they have a different destination. So it's not that these are the only two destinations. What Krishna is making the distinction is for those who practice piety. There are two categories. One who practice piety for the sake of material gains, and one who practice piety in the form of bhakti. So those who practice bhakti, their destination was given in the previous verse, and those who practice piety for material gains, they get what they want, which is they enter into the moon planet. Srila Prabhupada in the purport writes that that in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Kapila Muni mentions that those who are expert in fruitive activities and sacrificial methods on earth attain to the moon at death. These elevated souls live on the moon for about 10,000 years by demigod calculations and enjoy life by drinking somras. They eventually return to earth. This means that on the moon there are higher classes of living beings, though they are not perceived by gross senses. Okay. Next verse. Verse 26. Shukla Krishna Gati Haite Jagatah Shashvate Mate Ekayayatyanavrittam Anyayavratate Punaha. According to the Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns. So once again we see here that Krishna is quoting from the Vedas, Shasvate. Right? He says he is quoting from the Vedas, and the verse is essentially a summary of the previous two verses. Right? So 24 talked about passing in light, 25 about passing in darkness, and now Krishna is saying that the same is also said in the Vedas, that one who passes in light does not come back, goes to the spiritual world, and one who passes in darkness, he returns. Right? So this whole process has been going on forever. So it's not a process that is predicated on a particular yuga or a particular planet. Ever since creation has been there, these two processes have been there. That the souls who perfect the spiritual life, they go to the spiritual world, and the souls who desire material opulences, they enjoy in higher planets, and when punya kshina, when their piety becomes depleted, then they come back to the earth planet. Okay. Next verse. Verse 27. Nati shriti partha janan yogi muyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukta bhavarjuna. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjun, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. So, there are a couple of ways to understand this verse. Srila Prabhupada gives the conception of the pure devotees, and he says that because the devotees only rely on the mercy of Krishna, they are not bewildered by the path of light and the path of darkness, because they are always protected, whether they die during the time of light or darkness or some other time, they don't really care. So Krishna is reassuring Arjun that for devotees it's not very relevant. Then the question is that why is Krishna talking about this? And that takes us to the second understanding of the verse, that there are those who will practice Mishra Bhakti, and there are those who will practice the path of material piety. So, not being bewildered means that when one understands the difference between these two paths, then they will not be bewildered in terms of the choice that they will make. And so if you are standing at a crossroad and there are two roads going there, and if you clearly know that one road leads to a superior destination and the other not so, then you will not be bewildered in the choice. You will always take the road that takes you to the superior destination. So another understanding of the verse is that by applying the discrimination that Krishna has given through the previous set of verses about the two paths and the destination, the practitioner will not be bewildered and will always attempt to take the path that leads to the superior destination, which is entering into the spiritual world. Right? And Srila Prabhupada, as I mentioned, takes to one step beyond that. That the devotees, they don't even care about the inferior and superior destination. All they care about is devotion to Krishna. All they care about is Vaishnav Sang. There are some Vaishnava acharyas who have written songs that says that better for me to go to hell if I can get association of devotees there than to even be elevated to Brahmaloka if I cannot get Vaishnava Sangha there. Right? So they are indicating their indifference to this upper and lower planets, even to liberation. They indicate the indifference to all that because their primary motivation is serving Krishna in the association of devotees. Okay. Next verse is the last verse in the chapter. Verse 28. Vedesha yagyeshu tapah sucheva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtham ateti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upeti chadyam. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So this verse is a summary of the last two chapters, 7 and 8, where Krishna introduced first Mishra Bhakti, and then he spoke about Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service, and now he is glorifying the position of a pure devotee. So at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna had glorified the yogi to be, he said the yogi is one who is greater than the ascetics, the tapasvis, the jnanis, and the karmis, the fruitive workers. Now, in this verse also Krishna uses the word yogi, but the yogi over here contextually points to a devotee. So Krishna is now saying how one who has become devoted to Krishna, or a yogi who has developed affection for Krishna, will attain his abode. Adyam. Adyam means without beginning, and Param, the highest. So this is the Ananya Bhakta, the Paranishta devotee, not one of the Mishra Bhaktas. Now all the other activities are complicated, right? And Krishna gives a small list of them. That studying the Vedas, this is Gyan. Performing sacrifice, this is Karma Kand. Undergoing austerities, Tapa. Charity, this is again Karma Kand. Pursuing philosophical activities, Gyan, fruitive activities, Karma Kand. So these are all different flavors of Karma and Gyan. Even Astang Yoga, Krishna does not mention here, but one can understand that is also included. All of these will not lead one to Krishna. So if there is an abundance of devotion mixed in these activities, then they will lead the jiva to the spiritual world, but not in the direct association of Krishna. But only those who are performing bhakti which is unmixed with karma or gyan or asthang, they will attain the personal association of Krishna and his eternal abode. So Srila Prabhupada writes that the word idam viditva indicates that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. One should try to understand this chapter not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapters 7 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad-gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like the coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are specially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad-gita, especially this middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all the results of this activity simply by Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is glorifying these middle 6 chapters from 7 to 12, in which Krishna speaks about bhakti. And he says how the first 6 chapters that talk about karma and the last 6 chapters that talk about gyan, they are like covers. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, like when a king comes, then his ministers and other court people are in front of him, his army, other people are behind him, and the king is in the middle. Or sometimes Prabhupada says that if you look at an oyster, then there are 2 hard shells, and within that hard shells is the pearl. So similarly, in the Bhagavad-gita, there is these 2 coverings. The first 6 chapters talking about karma and the last 6 chapters talking about gyan, which protect bhakti. So what does it mean, protect bhakti? It means that it makes it available for those who, reading the first 6 chapters, understand the position of karma properly. Reading the last 6 chapters, understand the position of gyan properly. And then they focus completely on bhakti. Prabhupada also has put a lot of emphasis on reading or understanding in the association of devotees. As Prabhupada says that one who has a little faith in Bhagavad-gita should learn Bhagavad-gita from a devotee, because in the in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is clearly stated that Bhagavad-gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad-gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad-gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad-gita. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service. And this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. All these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away. One then becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky Golok Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. So Prabhupada has given a crisp summary of how to make advancement. Right? So Prabhupada firstly emphasized on the importance of listening Bhagavad Gita from an authorized source. He makes the same point in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita also, where he says that there are thousands of commentaries written on it. But one should read a commentary from a practicing devotee that is properly situated, because anybody can speculate and come up with any meanings. Sripad Shankaracharya speculated and he wrote commentary on the Bhagavad Gita to indicate that Krishna is without a form, that he is energy. So Srila Prabhupada emphasizes on the importance of hearing from the right source in the association of the right people. Right? So he says that you read the Bhagavad Gita written by a devotee or the commentary written by the devotee, and then you study it in the association of devotees. And after that, one becomes convinced about the need to render service to Krishna and his devotees. Right? And that will ultimately lead, Prabhupada says, to the highest perfectional stage, which is Golok Vrindavan. So this ends the 8th chapter, 28 verses. A quick summary that Arjuna asks Krishna 7 questions about the various aspects of the creation. That what is Brahma and what is Karma, what is the suitable time to die. And Krishna quickly answers the first 6 questions, and the rest of the chapter is devoted to the Antakale Prayana, that what should one think at the time of death. And essentially Krishna recommends to think of him at the time of death. And then Krishna, he helps us in terms of how to remember him at the time of death, the consequences of this, and the consequences of not doing this, by comparing the material and the spiritual world. And in the last set of verses, he talks about the supremacy of pure devotional service in attaining Krishna's personal association. Okay, so we'll stop over here. This is the end of the 8th chapter. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.